Okay, this is going to be a quick walkthrough of the Joe's Automotive project in Chapter 17, building this GUI completely from scratch. We're going to be alphabetizing the items here. I haven't alphabetized them for you. I suppose I could have done that. But let's go get started. Build a Joe Automotive, see how fast we can do this. Okay, over in Eclipse, I'm going to start a new project. Going to call it with my last name, Chapter 17, Joe's Auto. I'm using a slightly different JD key. We'll see if we have problems with that. Okay, my project. Now I want to add, and we'll find out. I'm going to do a new, let's go up here so you can see everything I'm doing here. New other, and if I have Window Builder installed, it will show up down here in Window Builder. If I have Swing installed, it'll also install that. And the way to do that is add new software under Help and browse to the correct items. That's a separate video. Okay, we're making a J-frame. The J-frame, we could have done this on our own. Let's call this main Joe's Auto. The program is going to be just one J-frame. And let's go ahead and make that J-frame. Window Builder is generating code for me when I do that. I could have started with the bare class and done this myself. And it's good to know that. That's why in our programming course we've learned to do this ourselves. But with the Window Builder editor, not only does it do some code for me, when I go to Design, clicking on my Design tab, it opens up, it parses the code and opens it up in a graphical user interface builder. First time you do it, it'll take a little longer. Here we go. And you have a little page here. You can edit your frame. I'm doing this on a Mac, so it's going to look a little bit different. Here is where we want to place our graphical objects. We're going to use absolute layout. Pick your layout to start. Trying to change it in the middle can be very confusing. So I choose absolute layout. Come over here and hover over my panel. That now will take absolute layout. Meaning when I lay things out on it, they will be locked in the absolute position that I lay them in. Let's see. We're going to have a title to our columns. We're going to be listing our checkboxes for the items that the user is going to be paying for. So back here in the description here, we're going to create a GUI interface. I'm going to have a checkbox for all the items that they're going to purchase, a label next to each one explaining the price of each one. I don't like this format. This is horrible with the prices jaggedy back and forth. I'm going to align the prices on the left. And you'll see things that lined up look better, look more professional. So I'm preparing for that. Double clicking on that label doesn't do anything. When I first make it, it gives me the opportunity to adjust it. This is going to be my service being offered. So I'm going to change the text of that down in the properties. Text of that is going to be service performed. Later I'm going to come back and adjust my font, but you want to kind of have an idea of where things are laying out. With the absolute layout, can adjust things. I'm going to, for my labels, since I'm going to be doing multiple labels, I'm going to go ahead and set my font. And just for fun here, I'm going to choose some other thing other than the default here. Oh, I get a sample of what it looks like there. And I think if I up arrow, up, it'll walk through the different fonts. You can choose whatever makes you think automotive. There's whole classes on choices of fonts. Let's try Impact just for fun. I'll make it larger. This is the top, and okay. We'll make them bold too. Might as well. Now that I have that, that's my service performed. I'm going to command copy, command paste, and I have another label with the same font, and I'm going to put his text to say price. I'm going to write, well, no, let's see here. Yeah, I'll write align price. Horizontal alignment to the right. And you'll see why I'm doing that later. So I'm grabbing him, moving him up there. And when in absolute layout, they kindly put guidelines, suggested snap locations. And I'll go with that. Makes things easier later on. So those are my headings on the columns. Now let's make labels for all our, actually, checkboxes for the items that we're going to choose to have service performed. So putting that there, come up here, and I'll align it with that, and go with the suggested location. It snaps in different places. You kind of get used to where you're going to put that. And first thing we're going to put is, first in the order will be inspection, $15. So down here in the text, inspection. Now, as I'm processing the checking of these boxes as they're checked, I'm going to put the price in the tooltip text, because this will make my coding work better later on. But the user isn't going to see that. Anytime I'm doing this, I can always click back and run it as a Java application and just see what it's going to look like. And there, not too bad. On a Mac, it looks like it gets the dimensions exactly right. It doesn't look exactly like the design, but closer than actually on a PC. Closing it, exit on close is built in for me. I can always look at the code that's being generated as I do that design. So we see here that the order that I create these labels is the order that they're created for me, generating code to create them. Sometimes this code is exactly what we need. We don't need to change it. Occasionally, when we need to refer to variables, we have to move them around so they can be global. Suppose I need to update a label. I need to make that global so it can be accessed from another method. Then I might have to move my declaration of variables up to this area. Sometimes Window Builder does it for you. But for now, we don't have to worry about that. We'll come back to that later. So clicking back to the design. And now let's bring those other items in there. But first, I want to check that I have my label to go with this. So I'm going to make another label. Not going to be this, it's going to be the default font rather than that font modified. And I'll come and align it nicely right about there. See how the two guidelines pop in the right place. And this is going to be the price of $15. And I want the dollar sign in there. Oh, what happened there? $15.00. And I want to right align that. Now I'm going to be making more of these, actually 6 more, right? Because I come back to here and I see there's 7 items. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to command select or control or shift select, copy, paste, and put the next one down. And see how it snaps in a nice place? I'm going to put it where it snaps to, right there. Do another paste. Another. Another. 2 more. And on the Mac, it's wanting to space them out a little more than I wanted. Let's see. I'll snap it down there. Let's see if it adjusts the size of my window for me. No, it doesn't. I select my window, I can readjust the size. So it looks like the spacing in the Mac doesn't quite space it out as I'd expect. But I have to select that outer window there. There we go. Now it's got more room. Now let's see. Sometimes there is some auto alignment here. You can mess with this as well. Let me try that. Let's do a select all, command all, and deselect by command select these outer panels and the outer box, we don't, oh, messed up. Select all. Let's try a shift select. Yeah, unselect those few things. Let's see if it works now. I can adjust the position. Oh, I have to deselect. Let's try that again. I have to deselect those two outer things before. It won't let me deselect that. That's interesting. Yeah, it won't let me deselect. Oh, never mind. I just realized that selection with the Control A doesn't work because it won't let me deselect things. But I just realized I can come over here and select them and shift select all of those. Now they are all grouped. I can use my arrow keys now to adjust their positions. If I come over here and adjust them all together. And like I was looking at before, I can adjust my vertical spacing right there, I think. Don't want that. No, it's centered. I don't want that. Let me do, that's alignment. I want vertical distribution. Maybe that's what I want. There we go. Vertical distribution. Don't like that. Oh, no, that's messed up. I'm going to undo that. Alright, it's not as easy as I expected. Well, we'll leave that alone for now. Let's adjust our names and then our prices. So the next thing in the line after the I is the lube job, 18. So to click on that, change the property of the text to lube job. I'm going to put the tooltip text and the label next to it to be 18. Select him, change his text to be 18. Okay. Next thing is muffler replacement, $100. And after muffler comes radiator flush. Sorry, oil change, then radiator flush. And I will put the price for the oil change, which is $26. Set that to 26. And that to 26. Then it's the radiator flush. Feel free to fast forward anytime. I won't know. Oh, and the label 30. Okay, back to here, radiator flush 30, and then tire rotation, transmission flush. Price for the tire rotation is 20. And the label, make sure the label reflects that. And transmission flush for 80. Okay, now we're going to do it. We think about what our code needs to do. As we select these, we're going to need to be updating some price. Why isn't that? Doesn't seem to be lined up like I like it to be. I guess I'll leave it where it suggests. I can always adjust that. I'm thinking I might make these fonts larger. I'm going to shift select both of those, and I can set the font to be the same for both. I'm going to enlarge that a bit. And let's enlarge the height of it a bit. Okay, now we're going to display the price of their services, and I just realized I'm going to need to leave room for that extra service. We'll get these working, and then we'll come back and add that extra service. Okay, let's have a total price. I'm going to use the same font, copy, paste, and put it over here. It's going to say total, offsetting it a bit just because it's an important item. I want to highlight that. I'm going to align that. Yeah, it's aligned right, and I'll have it be total. Total cost. Yeah, we'll go with total cost. Oh, I ran out of room. Give me more room. Total cost. Now we need a place to display that. Copy, paste. Put it right below. Now this one is important. And how about we make that not bold, but the same size. Plain, same size, right aligned. And initially its value is going to be 0 with the dollar in front of it, 0.00. Okay, so right now total cost, that doesn't look plain enough. Let's go back and adjust that font. It's not bold, but that choice of font makes it rather large. Let's just go back to Arial. That's always a good font, nice and readable. All right, now this label is important. I'm going to be changing what's showing up in there based on the price I'm calculating. So we need to give this label a special variable name. All the other ones, it has been naming them nicely for us. But this one, since we need to programmatically access this, let's give him a name. And I'm going to go with the prefix that Window Builder has been assigning to them. I'm going to call that label total. That's the only reason I care about his name, is because I'm going to need to access it from the other code. Otherwise, if I'm not going to change the label, I don't care what variable name Window Builder decides to give it, although it seems to be giving it decent prices. Although LBL new label, that's silly, but LBL price, that makes sense. LBL total cost. And because I've been changing the text, look at that, it's been giving these checkboxes decent variable names. Even though I'm not going to be referring to them from my program to make changes to them, it's nice to know what they are as I work on the code. Okay, so we've been generating this. Now it's time to, let's just run it first before we see that the code changes we need to make. Okay, all the checkboxes will work, but nothing's happening because there's no code attached to the event of the checkbox being changed. We're going to do that now. Come back to Design, and now we're going to take a look at the code. Come on, Design. Or sorry, Source, not Design. And we're going to make something happen for that very first checkbox. And then we'll see a better, we'll let Window Builder help us out, and then we'll do more. So service performed, price. Here is the inspection checkbox. We want something to happen. We want to update the price. So let's go back to Design, and let's see how we can actually attach an event to any item. Usually any item. Depending on what item they are, they can't take events. Like labels, they don't, I think they can take a mouse hover event. But to find out what events are available for responding to, I come over here in Properties, turn on this little guy right here, Show Events. And now I see, look at all these events I could attach to an object or respond to from this object. Lots of things to to confuse you and to be scary, we only care about this guy, this very generic action. Something has happened. Double click. That shows me that there is an action. If I enlarge this, there's an action performed event that I can respond to. Just double clicking right here will cause Window Builder to say, okay, you must want me to do something there. Other IDEs like NetBeans will put a little comment here like respond, or your code here, or custom code here. I'm going to put a comment here, respond to change. Remember, this is a change in checkbox setting. It's either been turned on or off. And I know it's associated right now with this checkbox, new checkbox. Oh, that's a bad name. Let me call this checkbox inspection instead. There's one case where it's nice to, I kind of like having those better names. So checkbox inspection. If I come back to Window Builder, oh, I better give it that same name everywhere. Copy. If I come back to Window Builder Design and I check on him, I should see his variable name now has a new variable name. I didn't notice. The other one had good variable names, but this guy didn't. So back to my code. What do I want to do? I want to increment the price, the total price variable, by whatever the cost of this particular item is. Well, I need to keep track of that cost. I could keep it as a variable here, but you know, it's somewhat of a global variable. I'm going to make it a global variable to my JFrame. So I'm going to do a little comment here for global variables. Variable is global to this class, so they can still be private. And we'll make it a float, and we'll call it price total. Initializing it to 0, good coding practice. Okay, so price total when the program starts will be 0. Here, when I turn on this checkbox, well, I have to know if it's been turned on. I need to add the cost of this checkbox, this item. So let's see here. How do I know if it is checked or not? Well, here's one way to do it. I can do if, and I know it has something to do with checkbox inspection dot, and let's see if autocomplete comes up. I can browse through here and see all of the properties available for me, and I'll just take you to the one we were looking for. It looks like on a Mac they're actually oh no, they're not alphabetized completely. What we're looking for is selected, and it is at the very top. There it is. That's the one I'm looking for. If I'm not sure, I can always click on it and the comments pop up. You're not seeing the comments, they run off your screen, but they're showing me that it's true if the toggle button is selected. That's the one I want. So if it is selected, that means they have just decided they want that service, or the mechanic is checking that they did that service. So what do I increase the price total by? Well, I could say price total plus equals 15, hard coding the cost of my this item. What's he even complaining about here? Oh, that's interesting. I can't do that inside of oh, that's something that didn't show up on my PC. Well, let's make it final and see if it'll be happy with us. We're going to change that later. We're going to make this a separate action handler. Okay, so price total increased by 15. But and then if it's not, it's a else. Now this, you have to think about this. If this is being unchecked, that means it had already been checked once. So when I first look at this, as I think, well, wait a minute, is my price total going to go negative if I do a minus equal 15? No, because it couldn't have been turned off unless it had already been turned on once. But here I want to think about making this code more generic and using that tooltip that I had save the value in. Let's get the price out of the tooltip instead of hard coding it here. Then I can use just about the same piece of code for all the other checkboxes. So we need to store the price. Let's go ahead and do float. Let's call it price of this item equals, now I need to read the price from that tooltip text. Well, it's going to be the checkbox inspection dot get tooltip text. That's the text assigned to that. Oh, but I need to interpret that as a float, so I can use float dot parse float and the text that's stored in tooltip text. Now there is a chance that if I hadn't properly set up the tooltip text, that this would get a parsing error and a real-time error. We'll assume that we have good values in there. Otherwise, I could put that in a try catch and set the price to be 0 if they didn't have the correct number in here. But now that I have that, now instead of hard coding it, I can say, okay, this text box, read the price from your tooltip text and adjust price total according to that. Remember, this is happening inside of the action performed. Okay, so let's run and see if it actually works. Oh, I forgot one more thing. I need to update the label. Right now I'm updating the total, but let's update the label now. Update total price label. And I've already forgotten what the name of that variable is. I can come over to design, click on it, and I see his name is label underscore total. Come back to here, and oh, it doesn't take me. I have to go back into my code. So label underscore total dot set. Oh, wait a minute, it doesn't know what that label is. What's wrong? Well, remember, we need to refer to that label. It has not been defined yet. It's defined way down here. This label needs to be global or above that other code. Since I'm planning to refer to this from somewhere else, I'm going to copy the declaration of this label, copy, remove the declaration here and only make it an assignment, and move the declaration of that label way up to the top, make it a global variable. Might as well make it private, just out of good practice, consistency. And now I'm declaring my label total cost up there. So now I can refer to it from anywhere else. And it's LBL total cost. Uh-oh, is that the right one? I think I might have just messed up. There it is. That's the one I wanted to make. Let me undo that. I messed up here. Go back. Control Z is your friend. And let's now get the right label here. It's label total. Copy that. Remove the declaration of it. And paste that at the top. There we go. Label total now is global. And now come back to here and label, it's capital T. Dot set text to be, guess what? I want it to be this price total. Well, I want to do this in a nice way. So we're going to use our string.format. Very helpful way to format strings. Given some arguments, have them come out in a nice way, such as I have a floating point number. I want it to display a $sign in front of it, and then display 2 decimals, and treat it as a floating point number, 2 decimals, and the argument to that string format is price total. Learn to use string.format. And what's he complaining about? What did I do wrong here? That's label underscore total difficulty. And what doesn't he like about that? Okay, I got so confused by this. Comes up occasionally. This is correct, but it's giving me an error. If I hover over that, it's complaining about the second parameter. This is what happens sometimes using the IDE. Out online though, I found the answer. It hasn't happened for a while, so I forgot what the answer was. This is correct, but I have to go back to my project properties, right click properties, and in the properties I have to change my Java compiler compliance to something 1.7 or higher. I don't know why 1.4 was there. Now I apply. It's going to do a rebuild because my compiler is changing a major configuration parameter. And now it's happy with the format. And I can continue on. At this point, this text should work, but only for the inspection checkbox. Let's make sure. Come to run it. Inspection increases the costs when I check that one. Okay, none of these others have an action handled. Okay, now it's time to decide, am I going to be efficient or be very late? Well, actually, you might think it's faster, but you're making your code much messier looking. What we want to do is have every checkbox do this. Now, what's unique about this checkbox action? Well, it knows what checkbox tool text to work with. Otherwise, it's getting a price from the tooltip and updating the label string. So since this code works, I'm not going to change it, but I'm going to use something more generic for all the rest of them. I'm going to copy this action listener. I'm going to copy the public action performed method from my action listener. Copy. I'm going to go down to the bottom and define a checkbox handler that will be the generic handler for all my checkboxes. So I define a class. Let's call it check. We'll use the same spelling. CHBX handler. That implements, what do we want to implement? An action listener. Because I'm defining an action listener, it needs to have certain things in there. And I'm going to let Eclipse add the unimplemented methods that I haven't defined yet. And I see that what it wants is an action performed. Well, I've just copied the action performed. That's almost exactly what I need to do, except I need to know what checkbox I'm dealing with every time this action listener gets executed. Well, to find out what action listener has, or what checkbox has caused this event, because I'm going to be assigning this action listener to multiple checkboxes, I can do this. What is that? A J checkbox? I think it's a capital B. Now let's check to see. J label, J. Yep, I got it right. J checkbox. We'll call it this checkbox equals, well, this is where after practicing I realized I need to typecast, say, okay, I'm expecting this to be a checkbox. What am I expecting to be a checkbox? e.getSource. See how getSource is an object, a generic object? I'm gonna, as a program, I know as I write this program that I am only going to be assigning this action listener to checkboxes, so I will know that this is a valid thing to do, that the source of the action is a checkbox, and now I can use this checkbox, copy, as the source of where I look for the tooltip text and where I know it's selected, and based on the price that came from tooltip text for any checkbox that has been assigned this action listener, I will update the total price. Now I'm going to use this action listener. So it's a checkbox handler that has been defined here. So copy that. I need one variable that's going to be my checkbox handler. And let's go ahead and we'll define that before we use our next checkbox. Here's our next checkbox loop job. Since this code here is already working, we can leave it alone unless we decide we really like what we did handling this. And you know what? I think I might. So I'm going to define my action listener up here, so then it's also can be referred to from this checkbox. So I'm going to define my checkbox handler. I'll call it checkbox listener equals new checkbox handler. And now checkbox listener can be added as an action listener for all my other checkboxes. So let's do it for this guy right here. That's the inspection. Here's the loop job. We'll add the action listener after we've done all these other things. So we do kpx loop job dot, oh, gotta spell it right there, add action listener, and the action listener is my checkbox listener. Okay, I'm going to be doing that for all of my other checkboxes. So I'm going to copy that code and put it after everyone, and I'll come back and put the proper name of the checkbox after everyone or in front of it, that dot add action listener. So every checkbox I'm going to be doing an add action listener. And that's the last checkbox. So now I'll come back and fix the code. The name of my checkbox now I'm going to copy and put that in front of the add action listener. Copy. Oops. Copy. Copy. Paste. Copy. Paste. Copy. Paste. And now every checkbox now has that checkbox listener, and this is what the checkbox listener does. Now I have given you that code, and let's see how this is different from what I originally had shared with you. Let's see, how do we do that differently? This checkbox, I guess I spelled the variable slightly different. I used the capital B, but otherwise you can see I did the same thing. And in class I didn't have that complaint about and confusing thing about the total or the string.format format. Alright, now let's run and see if it works. Make sure my tooltip text was correct. So verifying for everything, making sure the numbers are coming out right. Making sure that price matches what I set the label to be, because I could have messed up and forgotten to set the label to the right thing. Okay, so that's all good. What's left to do is handle the reading of that extra item. We'll stop here and we'll do another video of that because this video is getting kind of long.